50 years on, the outlaw Josey Wales still hits like a bullet. Clint Eastwood's revenge western became an instant classic, gritty, emotional, and packed with a cast that brought the frontier to life in ways Hollywood rarely matched. But what happened to the men and women who rode those trails? Let's find out. Number 1, we have Clint Eastwood as Josey Wales. At 45 years old when cameras rolled in 1976, Clint Eastwood wasn't just the star of the Outlaw Josey Wales. He directed it too, after famously firing the original director and taking full control of the production. Josey Wales was a man hollowed out by grief and revenge, and Eastwood played that quiet fury with an intensity that made the film one of his finest achievements. Now 95 years old in 2026, his personal life has generated almost as many headlines as his legendary career. He was married to Maggie Johnson for over 3 decades, then to Dina Ruiz from 1996 to 2014, and has at least 8 children by 6 different women across his lifetime. During the making of this very film, he began a relationship with his co-star Sondra Locke that would last 14 years before ending in one of Hollywood's most explosive legal battles, a palimony suit and a fraud claim that she alleged involved him deliberately sabotaging her directing career. He is currently in a long-term relationship with Christina Sandera, a quieter chapter in an extraordinarily complicated romantic history. Number 2, we have Paula Trueman as Grandma Sarah. Grandma Sarah was the stubborn, fearless heart of the civilian group that Josey reluctantly adopts as family, and Paula Trueman played her with a warmth and toughness that made every scene she was in feel completely grounded. What makes her presence in this film genuinely remarkable is that she was 78 years old when it was filmed, a veteran of Broadway's golden era, who had spent decades building one of the most quietly respected theatrical careers in American history before Hollywood came calling in her later years. Her personal life was marked by deep loyalty. She married architect Harold Sterner in 1936 and remained devoted to him for 40 years until his death in 1976, the very year this film was released. Paula Trueman passed away on March 23, 1994, at the extraordinary age of 96, proof that a life built on craft and commitment tends to last. Number 3, we have Chief Dan George as Lone Waddy. There are supporting performances that quietly steal entire films, and Lone Waddy is one of them. Chief Dan George was 76 years old when he brought that perfectly timed, deadpan wisdom to the screen. Every line he delivered landed like a gift, and his chemistry with Eastwood gave the film its unexpected soul. Away from the screen, he was a man of genuine historic significance, a real chief of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation in British Columbia, who had famously delivered the powerful Lament for Confederation speech in 1967, placing Indigenous rights at the center of Canada's national conversation. In his personal life, he was married to Amy George for over 50 years, raising 6 children together before her death in 1971, a loss that came just 5 years before this film immortalized him for a global audience. Chief Dan George passed away on September 23, 1981, at the age of 82. Number 4, we have Geraldine Keams as Little Moonlight. Little Moonlight's journey in the film, from silent captive to a woman finding her place among unexpected allies, carried a quiet emotional power, and Geraldine Keams brought an authenticity to the role that no casting decision could have manufactured. She was 24 years old when the film was made, and her presence here was genuinely groundbreaking. She became the first Native American woman to hold a lead role in a major Hollywood Western. Now, 74 years old in 2026, she stepped away from mainstream acting to dedicate herself to Navajo storytelling and cultural education, work she has described as far more meaningful than anything a studio could offer her. Her personal life has been kept completely private throughout, with no public records of relationships or marriages, a deliberate boundary she has maintained for decades, while focusing entirely on preserving the culture the film industry spent years getting wrong. Number 5, we have John Vernon as Captain Fletcher. Captain Fletcher isn't the film's most cartoonish villain. He's something more unsettling than that. A man who genuinely believed in what he was doing, and John Vernon played that moral certainty with a controlled menace that made Fletcher one of the Western genre's more complex antagonists. He was 43 years old at the time of filming. Already a highly regarded Canadian character actor, building toward what would become his most beloved role, Dean Wormer in Animal House 2 years later. Now, those who worked with him consistently described a man whose warmth off-screen was the polar opposite of the cold authority he projected under the cameras. In his personal life, he was married to Nancy West from 1955 until their divorce in the late 1970s, and had 3 children, including actress Kate Vernon, who who carved out her own significant television career. John Vernon passed away on February 1st, 2005, at the age of 72. Number 6, we have Joyce Jameson as Rose. Rose brought a fleeting warmth to the film, a saloon girl whose brief appearance left a surprisingly tender impression. And Joyce Jameson played her with the kind of lived-in vulnerability she brought to almost everything she did. She was 43 years old when the film was made, and had spent much of her career playing comedic, dumb blonde archetypes that consistently underestimated the depth she was actually capable of. In her personal life, she had been married to songwriter Billy Barnes from 1955 to 1963, a chapter she moved on from quietly. What Hollywood rarely saw behind the bubbly performances was a private battle with severe depression that lasted years. Joyce Jameson passed away on January 16, 1987. At just 54 years old, her death a shock to a community that had rarely looked beyond the performances to see what was happening to the person behind them. Number 7, we have Bill McKinney as Captain Terrell. If you needed someone to make an audience genuinely hate a character on sight, Bill McKinney was your man. Captain Terrell is one of the Western genre's most purely despicable villains, relentless, cruel, and utterly without redemption. And McKinney committed to every frame with a ferocity that made Josey Wales' quest for vengeance feel completely justified. He was 34 years old at the time of filming, already known to audiences for his terrifying turn in Deliverance 4 years earlier. In his personal life, he was married to Susie McKinney for many years and had one son, whom he named Clinton after Clint Eastwood, which says everything about the warmth and loyalty that existed between the two men far from the camera's eye. Bill McKinney passed away on December 1, 2011, at the age of 70. Number 8, we have Sam Bottoms as Jamie. Jamie is the young Confederate soldier whose bond with Josey gives the film its emotional foundation, the son figure that a broken man didn't know he needed. Sam Bottoms was just 20 years old when he rode alongside Eastwood, already carrying serious acting credentials for someone barely out of his teens. He came from one of Hollywood's most talented acting families. Brothers Timothy and Joseph Bottoms were already established names, making the Bottoms siblings one of the most genuinely gifted family acts the industry has ever produced. In the following years, saw him take on one of cinema's most iconic ensemble roles in Apocalypse Now, cementing a career that felt like it had decades of great work ahead. In his personal life, he had a long-term relationship with Susan Arnold before eventually marrying Laura Bickford in 2002. Sam Bottoms passed away on December 16, 2008, at just 53 years old, a loss that hit the industry harder than most. Number 9, we have Will Sampson as Ten Bears. Ten Bears arrives in the Outlaw Josey Wales like a force of nature, commanding, dignified, and completely impossible to ignore. A lot of that had to do with the fact that Will Sampson stood 6 feet 7 inches tall and carried himself with the quiet authority of someone who had nothing to prove to anyone. He was 42 years old during filming, a Muskogee Creek painter who had only recently turned to acting after being discovered for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest the previous year. In his personal life, he was married to Florence Sampson and had several children, including his son Tim Sampson, who went on to build his own acting career. Will Sampson spent his time in Hollywood as a tireless advocate for authentic Native American representation on screen, fighting battles the industry was nowhere near ready to have. He passed away on June 3, 1987, at just 53 years old, following complications from a heart and lung transplant. Number 10, we have Royal Dano as Ten Spot. Over 300 film and television appearances across 5 decades. That number alone tells you everything about the kind of career Royal Dano built. The Ten Spot was just one small piece of a body of work so vast it practically defies cataloging. And yet Dano brought the same careful attention to that minor role that he gave to everything across his extraordinary run. He was 53 years old when the film was made, already a legend among directors and fellow actors who recognized in him a level of craft that rarely gets the recognition it deserves. In his personal life, he was married to Peggy Dano for many years and raised 2 children. A stable, grounded life that stood in quiet contrast to the sheer volume of characters he inhabited on screen across half a century. Royal Dano passed away on May 15, 1994, at the age of 71. Number 11, we have Sheb Wooley as Travis Cobb. Most people who encounter the name Sheb Wooley end up falling down a fascinating rabbit hole, because the man who played Travis Cobb in this film is also responsible for 2 of the most recognizable sounds in the entire history of recorded entertainment. He recorded the 1958 novelty hit The Purple People Eater, which topped the charts worldwide. and he is widely credited as the performer behind the Wilhelm scream, the iconic sound effect that has been used in hundreds of films and television shows for over 70 years. He was 54 years old during filming, a country musician and actor who moved between both worlds with genuine ease throughout his career. His personal life included 5 marriages, with Linda Dotson becoming his final and longest-lasting partner from 1985 until his death. Sheb Wooley passed away on September 16, 2003, or at the age of 82, leaving behind a legacy that most people enjoy daily without ever knowing his name. Number 12, we have Matt Clark as Kelly. There is a specific kind of actor that every great era of Hollywood depends on entirely. The face you recognize instantly without being able to place the name. The performer who shows up in everything and elevates every scene without ever demanding the spotlight for himself. Matt Clark is that actor in its purest form. He was 38 years old during filming, already a fixture across virtually every major Western and television drama of the 1970s, and he kept right on working in that same quietly indispensable way for decades afterward. Now 89 years old in 2026, he remains one of the oldest living members of this entire cast, a career stretching across more than 5 decades of American screen history. His personal life has been kept entirely away from public documentation throughout all of it, a privacy he has maintained with the same steady discipline he brought to every role he ever played. Number 13, we have Sondra Locke as Laura Lee. Laura Lee's arc in the film, from a woman shattered by violence to someone slowly rebuilt by unexpected human connection, required a performer capable of conveying enormous pain with remarkable restraint. Sondra Locke was 31 years old when she delivered exactly that, and her chemistry with Eastwood on screen felt so completely natural because, as audiences would later discover, something real was already developing between them. Well, what most viewers never knew during the film's release was that she had been legally married since 1967 to her childhood friend Gordon Anderson, a union they maintained throughout her life, despite the fact that she and Eastwood began a live-in relationship that would last 14 years and produce some of the most bitter legal proceedings Hollywood has ever witnessed. When Eastwood ended the relationship in 1989, she filed a palimony lawsuit, followed by a fraud suit alleging that a directing deal he arranged for her at Warner Brothers was deliberately constructed to fail, a way of buying her silence rather than genuinely supporting her career. They eventually settled out of court, but the damage to her professional life was lasting and irreversible. Sondra Locke passed away on November 3, 2018. At the age of 74, a talent the industry failed in ways it has never fully reckoned with. The Outlaw Josey Wales cast carried stories as dramatic as anything Eastwood ever put on screen. Which one stayed with you the longest? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.